Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the second session of Women in Crypto presented by Chainalysis. I'm Amanda Wick, and I'm the Chief of Legal Affairs here at Chainalysis. I'd like to introduce you to the incredible woman who is joining me today. Cynthia Lummis is the junior senator from Wyoming and the first female senator ever elected to represent the Equality State. Born and raised on a ranch outside of Cheyenne, Senator Lummis has dedicated her career to defending Wyoming's agriculture, mineral, and energy resources. She first served the state in the State House and Senate as the state treasurer and as the at-large member of the U.S. House of Representatives from 2008 to 2016, where she was an original member of the House Freedom Caucus. Now in the upper chamber of Congress, Senator Lummis serves on the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, the Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, and the Environment and Public Works Committee, where she's focused on everything from lands, energy, and natural resource issues to finance and technology issues like cryptocurrency. Senator Lummis and her late husband have one daughter and two grandsons. We also want to introduce Chainalysis to you just in case you don't know us. We are the blockchain analysis company. We provide data, software, services, and research to government agencies, exchanges, financial institutions, and insurance and cybersecurity companies in over 50 countries. Our data platform powers investigation, compliance, and risk management tools that have been used to solve some of the world's most high-profile cyber criminal cases and grow consumer access to cryptocurrency safely. We'll try to have a brief question and answer session at the end, so feel free to submit questions, but if not, we want to get as many questions to the Senator as possible, so let's just jump right in with the first one. Senator, please tell us, how did you get involved in cryptocurrency?
Well, when I was state treasurer, I was always looking for a good store of value. I was able to invest Wyoming's permanent funds, where we would take minerals out of the ground, convert them to dollars, and then save the dollars. It became clear over time that there could be better stores of value than US dollars. We wanted to have a fully diversified asset allocation, some of which was dedicated to really solid stores of value. Later, my son-in-law and his friends introduced me to Bitcoin, and I began to learn that Bitcoin is very similar to gold in terms of its characteristics for a long-term store of value. So that became the basis for my curiosity about Bitcoin.
I feel like a lot of us have that story where we told our parents about cryptocurrency at some point. I can empathize. Now, I know you created the Financial Innovation Caucus. Can you tell us what was the main driver behind that and what are its goals for 2021?
Well, the U.S. Senate doesn't know very much about Bitcoin. And that's true with the senators, their staff, and people who staff the committees in the various offices around the Capitol. So our first goal is to just educate and inform people about Bitcoin. And that's why, for example, the work you're doing at Chainalysis is so important. Among the things that we've been able to do is use the data that you produce to show that Bitcoin is not a center for crime any more than a fiat currency is, in fact, less so. So we've been very grateful that Chainalysis has been such a contributor to information in this space. We want to share information in this space with members of the Senate so they understand the capabilities of Bitcoin. And as the United States now begins to explore the notion of a digital dollar, how those assets work. So I have a bipartisan caucus. My co-chair is Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, a Democrat, and we have members of both parties joining. And we're excited to use it as a means just to educate and inform members of the U.S. Senate and their staff about Bitcoin, about blockchain, and about digital currency.
Yeah, it's fantastic that you mentioned the education. Everything right now online is focused on that because it is the number one impediment to adoption. So it's very exciting to hear you talking about that. And it's funny that you mentioned the criminality because I used to be a prosecutor for the Department of Justice, and long time ago when we started prosecuting crypto cases in 2013, we used to say this is all criminal money. But since then, like you mentioned, data has consistently shown that a tiny fraction of cryptocurrency transactions are illicit. I understand part of the in terms of how do you fight the misconception that only criminals use crypto? Do you think it's simply education, or how do we get that message out?
I do think it's largely education, and Chainalysis has done a great job giving us data to back up our efforts to educate. So among the things we want to do with the Financial Innovations Caucus is invite senators, invite their staff, invite companies like Chainalysis and Coinbase and others involved in this space to come and talk about what they do, how they do it, and to show that there really is a human infrastructure behind this blockchain. We also had a chance to visit with the mayor of Miami, for example, who's taking some very forward-looking approaches to this, to Bitcoin. He is going to authorize Bitcoin to be used in pension funds, in retirement funds, and even allowing some employees of the city of Miami to take Bitcoin as part of their compensation. He may even get to the point sooner than anyone else in terms of a government official in using Bitcoin as a transaction, a means of transactions as opposed to just a store of value. So I think there's some really positive things going on in this space that should assure policymakers that this is a more mainstream product than it's been in the past. It's gone beyond the experimental stage, and it is becoming a means of exchange and a consistent store of value that's reliable and has a human infrastructure that underpins the blockchain itself.
I think those are some really good points. And we are seeing like institutional adoption, especially from financial institutions. We saw banks hold out for quite a while, but now we're seeing Kraken, Avanti, BNY Mellon, and others diving in. I know you kind of touched on this, but what do you see happening with the rest of the banking industry in terms of crypto adoption, but especially the use cases beyond custody, like you mentioned a minute ago, as a viable payment mechanism?
Well, I think that community banking is still very skeptical. I know in my state of Wyoming, I've had conversations with community bankers that indicate their concern and skepticism about this space. But in terms of some of the larger institutional banks that used to dismiss Bitcoin, for example, JP Morgan Chase, they were somewhat dismissive a few years ago of Bitcoin, and yet now they're very interested because they understand it better. As we all do, Amanda, we tend to dismiss things we don't understand. And so now that there's so much more knowledge, so much more information, it's past what you'd call a beta testing stage, Bitcoin has, and it's into implementation in a very traditional, emerging into the traditional side of banking and transactions and savings. And as it does that, more people are paying attention, more people are learning about it, and we want to make sure that the United States senators are among those people that are learning more about it, paying attention to it, understanding its capabilities and why the United States doesn't want to be left behind as this all happens. China is ahead of us in terms of its embrace and adoption of digital currency, and we need to catch up. But that has to be preceded by information, understanding, education.
Yeah, you raised so many good points in there. And I have to say, it's very exciting to kind of have people at your level. When I was boots on the ground in the government, it felt like we were kind of shouting into the wind. We need to learn about this. We need to know about this. We need to put resources towards this. So it's very exciting to have somebody like you kind of trumpeting that cause. And it's also really exciting to see what you're doing in your state. I'm a huge fan of Albert Faulkner, and Wyoming is doing some incredible things. Can you talk a little bit about why you want to make Wyoming like a go-to place for cryptocurrency businesses and financial innovation? And how do you envision that happening?
Well, Wyoming currently has the most forward-looking set of statutes. It became the model for Bitcoin cryptocurrency statutes. And not only did our legislature create a bedrock, a foundation for digital assets in the law, but it created a chancery court so case law can be developed around this space that hopefully can be used in other states as well. So having a legal and a statutory framework around which Bitcoin and other digital assets can operate, knowing what the ground rules are, is, I think, really important, and it has put Wyoming ahead. We also then had a series of regulatory frameworks put in place after the statutory framework in Wyoming that is also providing additional guidance. So we now have two special purpose depository institutions, as they're called, chartered in Wyoming. We have 3 more in the pipeline. And so Wyoming is ahead of other states in innovating in this space. And as people look at the statutory foundation that Wyoming has created as a model for what they can do, I think we're going to start seeing government be knowledgeable in its implementation of digital asset law and case law.
I think it really helps to have states that get out there. Anytime, even in the government, anytime you can get a go by, it's a lot easier to do the job. I think, you mentioned cryptocurrency as a stored asset class and as a payment mechanism. Do you see crypto or fintech generally as a way to kind of promote financial inclusion? Do you see opportunities there?
Oh my gosh, yes. One of the great things about Bitcoin is anybody can own it, anybody can buy it, anybody can store it. So I think it's one of those great equalizers. The guy that's out working construction on the building that I'm in is every bit is able to own Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, and have it there for them when they retire as an investment banker in New York City. So in that way, I think it's a great leveler. People that are worried, as I am, that the United States Congress is destroying the value of the US dollar with this profligate spending, can save Bitcoin knowing that there's only going to be 21 million ever mined, so it's a finite resource, and it's a really good solid store of value that as long as they keep their password in their wallet, it's always going to be there for them. They're going to have access to it. They don't need a bank. They don't need a financial advisor. They directly can buy and hold Bitcoin or fractions of Bitcoins in a way that gives them peace of mind that something that they're buying is going to hold its value to the day when they retire and want to access that money.
Yeah, you make a really good point about the risk of holding on to keys. We've seen a lot of articles recently about people losing their keys, losing tons of money. And it's really why seeing safe custody solutions as a viable option is something that's really exciting. But you also mentioned something really interesting in terms of inclusion. And this is women in crypto. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, how do you see women specifically shaping the cryptocurrency industry?
Well, look at you. Obviously, you're a woman that's shaping the crypto industry. Hopefully, I'm just an acolyte for the crypto industry. I don't know that much about it, to be honest, about the inner workings and the underlying algorithms. And I'm learning about it, I'm reading about it, but I didn't develop all that. The good thing about what I see is really fun about the women in crypto is, unlike Wall Street, you go to Wall Street, it's still pretty male dominated. But as crypto is such a new thing, there are a lot of women involved in crypto. And in that way, it's also more egalitarian. It is, in its formation, it has been very egalitarian in terms of gender and race, and people of all kinds are involved in it, interested in it, and involved in the foundation of it. So I think that we're going to see, as financial technology, digital assets develop, and the underlying support mechanisms for it, that it's going to be very much a male and female space. for people of all races and all over the world. That's another thing that's fun about it, it's not tied to a fiat. It's not tied to a sovereign. It's a wonderful asset.
Do you see opportunities in particular for women here? You kind of touched on this, but that are different than other areas in finance. I know it's new, but do you see other opportunities in particular for women?
Well, as you see the male-dominated Wall Street banks having to get into this space because it's unavoidable now. It's becoming mainstream. They're going to have to turn to a lot of women to help guide them through how to properly integrate Bitcoin and digital assets into their overall investment banking portfolio. So I do see more women becoming involved in male-dominated Wall Street banking as a result of the bank's needs to learn about this space from women.
And I guess, this is probably something that we could talk about at length, but what are you most excited about on crypto's horizon?
Well, for me, it's been about the store of value. As I go back to when I was state treasurer and being in the Congress and watching us spend way too much money. I don't know anyone in the Congress who knows how we're going to pay this back. Back when I was first in the U.S. House, like 2009, 2010, 2011, there were people who knew and had plans for how to pay this back. Paul Ryan was one of them. But now nobody knows because we're approaching $20 trillion in debt. And it looks like this week or next we may be adding another $1.9 trillion to that debt. If you pile dollars on top of one another and you pile up 1.9 trillion of them, that's halfway to the moon. And that's just 1.9 trillion. We throw around the number trillion now the way we used to throw around billions. Nobody knows what that means. Our ability to comprehend how much money that is has been decoupled from our ability to manage how we're going to pay it back. So that's why I'm excited for the American people about Bitcoin and knowing that there's something that they can look at as a store of value that I think is going to transcend the US dollar in terms of its long-term value for savings.
And when you talk about it that way, it's hard for people to not get excited, I think, or at least be open to the idea to educate themselves and learn more about it. We did have a lot of questions come in, so I want to make sure that we get to some of those. And there's some really good ones in here. What do you think are the top regulatory issues for cryptocurrency that must be addressed before people can trade confidently in cryptocurrency?
Well, I want to make sure that the Bank Secrecy Act is Bitcoin friendly, crypto asset friendly. The regulations that we saw forming at the end of last year and that are being evaluated now with the new administration seem to be that you have to know your customer's customer. That seems one step too far. So I want to make sure that we're not disadvantaging Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies while we're developing regulations around the Bank Secrecy Act. That seems to be the number one thing right now. And there may be others that arise, that we want to have relationships built up between members of the Senate and the regulators so as these issues arrive, we can begin to address them.
Sorry, I was laughing at one of the questions. I'll save that one for later. It's a funny one. How can we get this question a lot in terms of Bitcoin volatility? How can we be sure that Bitcoin is a good store of value given its extreme volatility? And I put extreme volatility in air quotes because there are many things that are just as volatile, but how do you kind of address people's concerns about the volatility?
We know that there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever mined. We know that the way that the mining is set up and the algorithms that operate it are predictable. So I have a comfort level that Bitcoin is now, pegging or evaluating other factors within our economy that the stock market also looks at. And it too, adjusts and bounces around and corrects. So maybe what we're seeing is the same kind of corrections that occur. We saw a big increase in Bitcoin, sort of going from the 20,000 per coin to just over 50. And then now we're having this stabilizing effect go on. And who knows where it will stabilize before it takes another big leap. I'm interested and curious to see how that works and how much it pegs to more standard U.S. stock exchange type of effects.
Well, we also got a question, an interesting one, comparing, like right now, you've got the SEC case that's open on Ripple for unregistered security sales, but at the same time, you've got the Coinbase preparing for an IPO. There is so much potential precedence coming. How friendly do you feel regulators like the SEC are going to be towards cryptocurrency? And does the current administration have any positions on crypto yet?
Well, I've had some conversations with people that are up for nomination for cabinet level posts. And I believe that the SEC may be one that is going to be very open to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So I'm actually pleased about some of the dialogues that I've had with folks at the SEC and nominees for the SEC.
How do you foresee private sector-led cryptocurrency fitting into the landscape of country-led cryptocurrency in terms of regulation in emerging economies?
Ooh, wow, that's a great
That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the women that come on here, they don't play.
No kidding, it's impressive. The United States, I think it has contracted with MIT to try to develop the foundations for a fiat digital dollar. China has a prototype for a fiat digital yuan. So I think that Bitcoin, because it's not tied to a government, is going to be more ubiquitous, an international means of exchange that doesn't require going through the bank for international settlements on big transactions. You can have, already have like same-day settlement, whereas with traditional banking, we're nowhere near same-day. Well, maybe we are near same-day settlement, but we're not there. So I think it has some characteristics that is going to make it transcend fiat currencies. And yes, they'll work side by side to some extent, but I think Bitcoin's acceptance worldwide is going to make it exceptional.
And earlier you mentioned like how important education is to that acceptance. Do you have any, I guess, suggestions or thoughts, like where could people start in educating themselves if they want to learn more about this as an asset class, as a payment mechanism? Where would you suggest they start?
I would start with reading the Bitcoin Standard. That book is so comprehensive in terms of explaining why Bitcoin is a great store of value, explaining the characteristics of Bitcoin. So that's where I would start.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. Very few people have suggested that book to me, but it is kind of a very good one. I'll put in a small plug here that a lot of the exchanges, I think Coinbase just started, Gemini started, tons of free materials online. I don't know if you've noticed this, but have you seen, like, at least in this area compared to traditional finance, there seems to be a wealth of free resources. I mean, you can almost go down rabbit holes for hours here. Have you seen that in comparison to traditional finance? It just seems like there's a lot of educational opportunities.
Well, and I think that's because this is a online-based world now that Bitcoin developed because of the new digital world. And the digital world is very friendly to onlining so many things. Open source is a much more understood and welcomed concept in the world of online. And so it doesn't surprise me to hear you say that. It's so helpful, so wonderful. And again, it's just so egalitarian. It just levels the playing field. So the guy who is out building this building has access to the same information as the investment banker or the lawyer. Amanda?
No, it's such an excellent point, because there were all these programs that came up in finance, to kind of pay to learn. But right now you can go on, Chainalysis.com, you can go on Coinbase.com, you can go on YouTube, you can literally spend weeks on free education materials before you even get to companies like ours that kind of distill it and package it, and try to kind of give it to you as efficiently as possible. But it is different, and the educational opportunities are out there. I think what we appreciate are folks like you who kind of like are advocating for why it's so important. At least I have seen, and I'm curious if your thoughts, but I've seen a resistance in, financial institutions, even sometimes when I was in government. I like to joke, we lawyers go to law school because we don't want to do math or science. But there does seem to be a resistance to kind of learning new technology. And sometimes it feels like that's all this is. It's just the scariness of technology, a new technology that people don't want to take the time to learn,
I think that's very true. And more so, I confess, for people my age than your age, we're a little bit resistant to it because it just doesn't come naturally to us. But for people your age, it's a little more natural. And to people my grandson's age, it's going to be even more natural. So the challenge for me at my age, and being in the US Senate where most of the people are roughly my age, we're grandparents, is to help us understand and become comfortable with something that is an asset that is digital, that you can't see, you can't hold in your hand, but that has the same value as something you can hold in your hand, like gold. So it's hard for us to get our heads around that, Amanda, partly because we weren't raised that way. But you have been raised that way, and my grandsons are being raised that way. And so I think that for those of us who are my age, who are grandparents, and we're trying to understand and grapple with this and begin to either make policy that allows innovation to continue without restricting innovation, but still provides a level playing field, is really challenging. And that's why when I came here, I wanted to start with educating people and learning more myself.
Well, I have to say, like, I think it's so fantastic. Like, so often people just kind of dive into this, and you have notably taken steps on the education front, on the advocacy front, and everybody in the crypto ecosystem appreciates all of the voices that are just advocating for education and awareness. So I want to thank you for that. I will say there was a funny question in here that I thought you might appreciate, a less serious question. Why did you remove your laser eyes on Twitter? Hashtag laser raise until 100K.
To me and people like me, it's all so foreign. And I'm such a stuffed shirt otherwise, I'm a total nerd. And so to have something like that be a thing is such a mystery. And I got a real charge out of it. I guess I'll have to go back to the people who understand what laser eyes are about. We even now make jokes in the office. We have cows with laser eyes because I'm a rancher. It's fun because as is true with digital currency, it's new and it's exciting and a little foreign to people my age. I'm having a lot of fun with that side of it, even though I completely do not understand it. I don't get it.
I think you understand way better than most. It's fantastically, and the fact that you can laugh about it sometimes with crypto, with all of the inside jokes and the memes, and sometimes you just have to laugh and kind of say, okay, that's just crypto, right? So, and there were a lot of people who actually appreciated the laser eyes joke, the question, as it were, legit question, as it turned out. So we appreciate you answering it. We appreciate you coming on. Senator Lummis, thank you so much for being here today. I can't say enough how much I appreciate the opportunity to talk with such an important voice in this space and someone who will clearly be critical to the future of crypto regulation. So I just want to say, on behalf of Chainalysis, the Women in Crypto, all of the women out there, globally, women tune into this. And as you know, your voice is an incredibly important one around the world, not just in the United States. I hope all of you out there in virtual land will join us for a virtual networking hour immediately following this session by clicking the GatherTown link that was in your event invite. If you weren't able to join us last time, GatherTown has managed to gamify networking, and it is a fantastically fun way to network virtually. So please come select an avatar, walk around the space, and you can bump into people in the aisles. You can sit and chat at a table, or you can even have little private one-on-one meetings at the little two top tables. It's like basically the Legend of Zelda meet Zoom, and I promise you're going to love it. We will have the recording for this sent out via email this week for those of you who were unable to attend live, and we will be announcing our next Women in Cryptocurrency series soon. But if you have suggestions for speakers or topics, please don't hesitate to email us or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I encourage you to follow Senator Lummis's Twitter handle. She has lots of good things to say. She's a valuable voice in the space. Senator Lummis, thank you so much. We really appreciate you, and I hope all of you have a great rest of your day. Thank you again.